My name is Sam Park. I'm born and raised in the state of Georgia. I'm the first Asian American Democrat elected in our state's 230-year history. I was elected back in 2016. I've been re-elected 3 times, so I'm the longest serving Asian American currently in the state of Georgia. Currently, I serve as the minority whip or the whip for the Georgia House Democratic Caucus. You know, growing up in the Deep South as an Asian American, I never really dreamed of running for office one day. It didn't seem like it was something accessible. You know, I wasn't really even politically aware, certainly growing up. My exposure to politics really began with an interest in public policy, which started when I was in law school during my second year, where the first piece of legislation I drafted was to expand preventative healthcare services for kids in Georgia. A few years afterwards, after I graduated from law school, after I got my master's in law, politics, and legislation, because I was again interested in focusing on public policy, as I was involved in Georgia politics, one of the big debates at the time was whether or not Georgia was going to expand Medicaid. This was Medicaid expansion, of course, being a part of the Affordable Care Act, part of Obamacare, that really transformed American healthcare policy in a positive manner by helping millions of Americans get covered by health insurance. And so in the state of Georgia, where we have a Republican-led legislature, they actually made it more difficult to expand Medicaid. That very same year, 2014, my mother was diagnosed with cancer, and it was Medicaid and Medicare, public health insurance programs, that gave her a fighting chance. And so I think because of the confluence of those events, I felt like I needed to do something about it, because it wasn't just, public policy, it wasn't just politics for the sake of politics. These were issues that had a direct impact on, my mother and certainly on the lives of hundreds of thousands of people in my home state. When the big policy issue became personal, that became the impetus for me to run for office. My odds were not good. The district I was living in was a Republican-leaning district. I was challenging a 3-term Republican chairwoman who was well-respected. And this was in 2016, in which Donald Trump became elected. I ended up getting elected the very same night that Donald Trump got elected, which was a surreal experience in and of itself.
Based on everything, an awesome message to the Georgia GOP and to the rest of the state and to the rest of the country. So let's keep it going, and thank you everybody so much.
But it was a reminder that, American democracy is alive and well, in which if the son of immigrants, the grandson of refugees from the Korean War can jump into the political arena, driven by a desire to make progress on an important issue like healthcare, having thousands of conversations, building a multiracial, multi-generational coalition, then if I can do it, I feel like others can do it as well. Growing up in the South, where I, frankly, never really seen a lot of Asian American representation in government and the political arena, but in many other spaces as well, it was difficult.
I see that you helped author or co-sponsor House Resolution 571 in 2019, which recognizes the 100th anniversary of the Korean independence movement. So what does this recognition look like? What was the change that was made, and why was that important to you?
One of the benefits of being a legislature is that you're able to help bring attention to additional issues or to help recognize important moments in history. Given all of our intersectional identities, whether it's race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, we're all multifaceted individuals. And yet, there are these events throughout our history that are parts of our identity that, again, I think help focus on our commonality. Certainly the 100th anniversary of the Korean independence movement is just one of those things in which we're celebrating that uprising and that desire for freedom, for our ability to ultimately govern ourselves and determine our future, which I think is an innate human desire in which you'll see across the world. When it comes to effectuating big change, it's incredibly difficult. I think there's no two ways about it. Progress is very hard to make, but when you're successful, it results in generational change. And I think especially for myself, and I have to remind myself oftentimes, but also certainly for folks of the millennial generation, but also for Gen Z, persistence and resilience when it comes to trying to effectuate political change, when it comes to trying to address some of the systemic challenges and injustices that we've inherited, requires us to play the long game. We should expect that there's going to be difficulties along the way. We should expect that it will take a long time, and that there will be moments in time, like I think the period in which we're living in right now, in which there's a backslide of what we took for granted as constitutional fundamental rights, such as the right to an abortion. We're seeing the same thing when it comes to taking away rights from the LGBTQ community as well. But in the midst of all the challenges, in the face of adversity, I think we have to remember our power and our ability to continue to make progress. And again, it's that resilience needed, not just to persevere amidst the storm, but ultimately to encourage others to do the same so that together we're moving.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Don't underestimate what you can do.
And last question, what's your favorite Korean food?
갈비탕.